is a one-woman show featured at Theatre Republic as a part of the Brisbane Festival's 2018 season. Written by award-winning theatre makers Emma Hall and Prue Clark, the show is a collection of 15 chapters that, through witty and dark humour, explore what society depicts the modern-day man to look, feel and act like. Presented with elements and components that have been devised under the term post-dramatic theatre. Post-dramatic theatre depicted in Michael Ingham's book on intermediality as a, quote, a performance that is based on non-literal dramatic scripts or source text that prioritises the interaction of performer and audience. Hans Luhrmann study states that for a work to be considered post-dramatic, it must, quote, subject the traditional relationship of theatre to drama to deconstruction. This critique will analyse the elements of intermediality, hypermediacy, and intersectionality to determine if this production was indeed a post-dramatic work. Ode to Man is a show that is presented as an episodic, non-linear work that has no fictive cosmos. Performed in the style of an open-ended work, the show allows room for personal interpretation, as many topics are left unresolved and questions unanswered. This notion of allowing sites of meaning for the audience is the first example of the use of intermediality within the show. Associate Professor Chell Kattenbelt states that, quote, intermediality refers to the correlation of media in the sense of mutual references between the media. Kattenbell notes that his personal opinion towards the definition of intermediality is that it is, quote, the correlation between the media that results in the redefinition of the media that are influencing each other, which in turn leads to refreshed perception. This ideal of redefinition allows for a world of possibility, for creators to push the limits of the multitude of different relationships that can be explored between that of media, performers, and audience. The most significant example of intermediality that is showcased in the production of Ode to Man is the ever-present relationship between the performer and the use of projectors, from handheld projectors to the interactive projections on the whitewashed walls. Our society's technological advancements have allowed Hall to create a show that breaks down the fourth wall and pulls audience members in, to create an open conversation. A pivotal moment when the correlation of media was present was in the opening title, where Hall was seen being responsive to the text that was projected on the backdrop behind her. Hall states in a post-show Q&A conducted on the 12th of September that her choice to work in tandem with the media was a pivotal part of the show, stating, quote, it came from the idea that theatre is the relationship between more than one person. Hall noted that in solo shows, the relationship is between the audience and the performer, and by adding the element of interactive projections, the projector essentially took on the role of an extra character, similarly linked to the act of cross-pollinating. The element of intermediality is acknowledging the complexity of the relationship between the mediums on stage and acknowledging that they are both separate entities that are working in correlation. University lecturer Nathan Sidthorpe describes the process as acknowledging the mediums bumping into each other, rather than blending into each other. Another element that makes the show a postmodern work is a branch off intermediality called hypermediacy. Butler and Grusin define the term of hypermediacy as a, quote, style of visual representation whose goal is to remind the viewer of the medium. This element runs evidently throughout Ode to Man, as Hall creates a show that is heavily assisted by the use of projectors. Hypermediacy is the notion of acknowledging the significance of the process rather than the overall product. Clear examples of this in the show is when Hall would use a pole to pull the projector screens up and down throughout the show when the use of character was needed. This art of manipulating the mechanics in front of the audience is a rather new feature to theatre, and by doing so it adds an extra theatricality to the moment. Commenting briefly, though a highly post-dramatic work, this show did not have a clear example of the use of intersectionality, rather noticeable social and cultural statements that ran throughout the show, the most present being society's views towards stereotypical masculine traits within this decade. Hall comments throughout the show that she interviewed many men to better understand what the definition of masculinity is, but she failed to obtain a clear answer. Hall suggested that this is due to the fragility of masculinity as present, as the ideal of picture of what masculinity is slowly seeping into a new ideal, one in which women are strong enough to build houses and men are caring enough to have emotions and cry. Through this analysis, it is clearly evident that Ode to Man is a work that rejects the traditional dramatic qualities and rather embraces those of post-dramatic to create an invigorating verbatim theatre that challenges audience members to question the enforced stereotypes around masculinity, leaving audiences asking, so what is masculinity? Thank you.